are about to set up our first route, and we're going to start building the site. And what we're going to do first is we're going to start with the initial route building and all the files and folders that you're going to need, and eventually put all that stuff together and build the first home page to a state where it actually renders on the browser, or you can link to different things and reference different things on it and things like that. And we're gonna go kind of slow on this because I'm going to be explaining some of the things inside of the page and how they build together in the HTML architecture. Okay, so first thing that we need to do is find a place in your what do you call it, in your Explorer, in your machine where you're going to build this. So I usually have in a particular folder inside my computer and in my hard drive that I keep all my stuff in, all my sites for my clients, and including all my tutorials for and then I have inside of each tutorial folder I have a folder for each tutorial for each language. So so I am organized that way. It just helps me find things when I need them. So I am in my tutorials here, and this is for the HTML one. So I have this folder here, instructional playground. This right here, this HTML tutorial, is the site that is already built, the one that I showed you earlier. So I'll eventually be updating this folder as well, and if we end up changing it for some reason, which I don't think so, and then I'm going to send this through GitHub in a GitHub link, so that you guys can download it and have the entire thing built up that you can cross-reference with your code and to see if you code it along correctly and things like that. However, don't cheat, okay? Don't go to the end of the tutorial. Don't try to download this and just kind of just read over it and expect it to work. And well, I mean, it will work, but don't just download it and that's it, okay? The whole point of coding along is to kind of get you comfortable with mistakes you're gonna make while you're coding, and seeing how things behave and things get put together. So let's just go ahead and dive in. All right, so inside, like I said, inside of your C drive, find a place where you want to go, and then make a folder that is going to hold your tutorials. I call mine instructional playground. You can call yours HTML test, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, it doesn't really matter. You can even call it your name. Now from that folder, assuming that you already followed my previous tutorial, my previous video, and if not, I would suggest that you go back a couple of steps and start from the beginning. But assuming that you already installed Visual Studio Code, what you're going to do is that you're going to right click on that particular folder and open with code. There is another way that you can do this from the bash. So if you prefer to do it, I'm going to show you how to do it in both ways. Let's start with the bash first. For example, if you open git bash here, you're going to open this well, actually, let me back up one more step that I didn't specify. The reason why I had that option, the git bash here, is because I have git installed. Okay, so if you don't have git installed, you could go ahead and download it if you want to. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and show you where you can just simply research git, and then you'll get this site right here, and this is what it looks like, and this is the download for Windows. And then the only thing that you need to do when you download it is to make sure that I'll just show you. I'm gonna try to download it, and sure, I'll add it to my desktop here so that way I can delete it. And again, this is not completely necessary, but it does help in other ways in the future. Maybe some other larger applications that will require you to have more access to Git. You don't really need it for this one. So basically, this is what you do. You click next, and this is all fine here. Okay, Windows Exploration Integration, you make sure that you want to have that git bash here include it in there so that way you can get it from here like I showed you. And then click next. This is fine the way it is. Click next, and then this is where you want to, I think you're going to be up here when you try to download it, and this is what you want to use. You want to use the use git and optional Unix tools from the command prompt. Okay, so you want to make sure that you do that, and I'm not going to continue with this because it's going to you know, I already installed it, so I don't really need it, but just follow along with this and install it and everything will be fine. Okay, so exit setup, yes. Alright, now however, say for example you don't have git installed. That's not a problem. You have a native command line in your application, in your, I'm sorry, not in your application, but in your computer. So if you click some CMD, which is basically going to give you this right here is your, you know, your command prompt that comes with Windows, and if you're using a Mac it will be a terminal, and it's the same thing. You can get it from your applications folder. So if you want to open this folder from here and open Visual Studio Code from here, you could use this, and you can cd / so you can start from scratch from the C drive right here, and then follow along on this path here. So cd, and then you're going to put XA and then tab, and it will find it, / and then you could put the first couple of letters and tab. Oops, HD. What happened? Okay, well, let's cd there and see what happens. I am there, and cd ht tab. I wonder why I didn't find it the first time. ht docs. Let's try with a /. The next one is going to be tutorials tab. Oh, okay, so you needed to do a /, a reverse /, not a forward /, tutorials, and then another / in tab instructional playground, and then hit enter, and then you're there. Now from here you can basically put code space dot, and then when you hit enter it would open Visual Studio Code, and you're in the instructional playground folder right now. So that's one way to do it. The easier way to do it, if you're already in the folder, I just wanted to show you the other way to do it. But you know, there will be times where you probably be able to do it from the command line or from the git bash. But an easier way to do it, if you're already in the folder, is just to right click and then just open with code. That's as simple as that. I know it almost seems like, why would you even want to do it the other way? Well, you know, it's never a bad thing to know, you know, other ways to do things. So I'm just gonna put that away because I'm not gonna need that right now, and I'm going to close this git bash window back here as well, and I'm gonna open this to have access to the entire window. So okay, so now I am in my folder, and I have to create my root in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a root that is going to hold the entire website inside here. Okay, so I'm going to create a folder right here, and I'm going to call this HTML tutorial. Okay, HTML tutorial. Alright, and then inside the HTML tutorial is where we're actually, this is the actual website now, and then inside of here is where I'm going to create my entire folder. Now I actually, to avoid confusion, I'm actually going to back out of this, and I'm going to look in here and see that I created a folder in here, and this is actually where I want to go. So I'm gonna just open the Visual Studio Code for that one, so that way I have my root initialized on so I'm gonna close this and open with code, and then put this away. Alright, here we go. So now I am in here and I'm in the folder. There we go. that will make things a lot simpler, no confusions. Alright, so now it's time to create my actual folder root and the organization of my root. So the first thing I want to do is, I know I want to have an index file that is going to deploy my home page, my landing page. So I'm going to create file and then index.html. This is how this right here is how you can tell the browser that the document that you're sending is going to be an HTML document. Okay, so you're gonna hit enter and you got your first index file here. Now you're gonna create a folder, and in this folder you're gonna call it assets. So what this assets means is a collection of all different files that contain specific languages and instructions that you're going to use to create or to support your HTML. So your styles are going to be there, your scripts are going to be there for JavaScript, and even your images are assets. Okay, everything that the HTML that is not an actual page. Okay, so in here, inside of assets, I'm going to open in here and I'm going to create another folder in here, a subfolder called CSS. And then back up here, instead of assets, another folder, and then I'm going to call this JS. And one more, I'm going to create another folder called images. So now I have 3 folders in here. One is going to hold all of my styles, one is going to hold all of my images, and the other one is going to hold all of my JavaScript. As a matter of fact, I'm going to rename this. Right click, rename scripts. The only reason why I'm changing it to scripts is only because I want it to be identical to what we built, or what I already built, and what the project that I already built is going to look like. So I don't want this to become a confusion later if you don't find this folder in there. So I'm just going to try to mimic exactly, and I probably should have had my project open somewhere else, so I don't make any decisions that I shouldn't make. So I'm going to open this in a new window and have that somewhere else where you can see it, so you don't get confused. But that way I can keep up with the project in the exact same way. Okay, so moving along here. So now you have your HTML document here, and then you have a CSS folder, image folder, and scripts. Okay, and here all you're gonna have is basically JavaScript folder, and if you have any other type of Java script, such as a TypeScript maybe, that we will not do in this tutorial, you could put it in here as well. And here you will have all your CSS, and obviously image will hold exactly that, images. Okay, in some cases you may end up having a video in your website, and you will have another folder here called media, and then inside of media you will have videos or songs or anything that is a media item, it will have in there. So there are different many types of assets. Icons are considered assets, and they're not really considered images, so you could possibly put that in there, but we're not going to use static assets for icons. We're gonna use Phantasm as an external link that I showed you in the last video. That way we don't have to import the entire library in our root, but we can service the library that they have in their server and just fetch all of the icons that we need from their server without having to actually download anything in ours. Okay, alright, so we're here, and eventually we're going to create all the other pages, the about page and the programs page as well, and the contact page. But we're gonna start with one for now. Okay, so now that we're here in the HTML, it's time to create the page. Okay, so there are many ways to create a page from scratch, but if you have Emmet installed, which you should, because it comes originally with Visual Studio, all you can do is basically put that asterisk, that exclamation point, and hit enter, and it automatically creates your first structure for your most basic structure for HTML. Okay, that's beautiful because you don't have to write all of this. Okay, now if you wanted to do this by from scratch, then by all means go ahead, and that's a great idea. But yeah, I don't really think it's that necessary. So before we actually start building stuff in here, we're gonna talk a little bit about what all this stuff means. So the first line here, the Doctype HTML. This right here is a document declaration, and what this means is telling the browser that this document type is of HTML and is using HTML5. With this right here, you will be able to target a lot of the stuff in here, such as the header, semantic tag, which is an HTML5. If this wasn't an HTML5 doc type, it was an older type of HTML, like strict or traditional or something like that, this wouldn't work because this is specifically to be interpreted by HTML5. So so this is kind of important, this doc type right here. Without it, you're gonna have a lot of bugs. Okay, every HTML document needs to have a doc type. The next thing you're going to have is the HTML tag. The HTML tag declares the very wrapper of your HTML document as an HTML page and not an HTML view, for example. There will be cases where you are injecting views that don't have to start with HTML. So like if you wanted to have a view, let me change this to HTML so you can see the code here. Alright, so if you wanted to have a view with a UL list and an li hello, like that. Let me just copy. Actually, let's make this a menu. Let's say this was a menu. And contact. So let's say that you build the menu item as a view that you're going to inject into a page. You could have it like this. You don't have to declare a doc type. You don't have to declare an HTML, a head, body, anything like that. It's just basically a simple snippet. And then you can create, you can save this file inside somewhere and name it navigation view, for example, and then you can come in here and inject it into your body or whatever you need it, and it will run in here. And the reason why it doesn't need a doc type or any declaration of head or anything like that is because the injection. Once you inject it here, this is the actual file that is going to render in the browser, and this is the file that is going to be interpreted as it with that doc type and this HTML and head and all of the other stuff in here. So the view here is just going to be an integration. This file is going to be an integration to this file, but this is not the file that is going to render. This is the file that is going to render, and the one that the browser is going to read and make sure that it has an HTML declaration. So hopefully that made sense, but this will make a lot more sense later when we're actually doing PHP website PHP page for this, to turn this into, because right now with this view, although there is a way to do it with JavaScript, that you can do injections in here in HTML, it's very quirky. It doesn't really work as as clear, or it's not as nice. It's very, very buggy. So I'd rather do that stuff with PHP instead, or with a JavaScript framework such as Angular, Vue, or React. Those are even better, but in my opinion, but not with just a static HTML site. So I'm gonna just delete this, continue with here. Alright, so we explain what this is, and now there's this property here, this attribute here called lang en. This tells the browser that this HTML page is going to be natively written in the English language. Okay, you could have pages where you can have I don't really remember what Spanish is. I think it's ES for Spanish, but I could be wrong. Or GE for German, and either way, there are different languages that you could use here. And unfortunately, I don't really use a lot of this stuff because I don't really make websites for in other languages. But what happens is that if you create it here in another language, and you can always look up what the let's see if there's anything on that HTML lang attribute. I'm sure there is. Okay, so here you have French, and I'm sure there is probably a little bit declaring HTML. Okay, so language is here for French, and then this is, I was right, that is for ES for Spanish. So what happens is that if you declare a specific type of language for your document, when you open it on your browser is going to pop up a little window that says, do you want to translate this? Most modern browsers would do that. Okay, and that kind of helps if you want to have a document that is going to be read internationally. So I would recommend to just make it in language English, so that way if someone in France, for example, is looking at your website and they want to know what's going on, their browser, because of the geolocation that they're in, is going to make sure it's going to pop up a thing for them that says, hey, this is written in English, you're in France, do you want me to translate this? Okay, it's nice to have, not completely necessary. A lot of HTML documents don't do this. I tend to forget about it a lot because my market is not outside of the United States, but still, if you want to, by all means. Okay, so the head of the site is where you inject all of the references that your website is going to need in order to make connections to your CSS documents, and in order to make connections to your script files, and also have declarations for Google Analytics and declarations for several types of meta tags that some of them have importance in for SEO, for search engine optimization, and also to declare specific aspects of the way that the site is going to be rendered in the browser. So for example, the chart set UTF-8 is one that you can attach into your meta tag, and there is a full list of meta tags that you can use online. You can search some. You don't have to use all of the meta tags in the book. There is explanations for each one of them, but it would take a long time to explain all of this. But these are the very minimum that you need to use. Okay, this one right here, this meta viewport tag, helps you with responsive design. This is what will make sure that your website works in responsive design to your that the responsive design works for your website to render in all your browsers, regardless of the device width, and it also sets the scale down to the native scale size, so that way you don't have to render anything a little too large or too small, and everything will be set up right. Without this right here, you will have problems running responsive design code that you're going to see in your CSS file later on. Okay. This right here is compatibility for browsers. The most critical compatibility is going to be for Internet Explorer. In my opinion, Internet Explorer is always playing catch with all the different browsers out there. Although Edge is pretty decent, it's still not my favorite. But so just make sure you keep this up here, so that way if anybody's watching yours or reading your site through Internet Explorer, you got that taken care of. And then this title right here is basically what you're going to name your site. So you can see this stuff and the rest of the stuff that we're about to put on here. We're gonna need to go live. So assuming that you already installed all the stuff that I showed you earlier, you should have a go live or an ability to go live. Okay, so you just come over here, click or right click on it, and open with a live server. So you should be able to see this right here that says port 5500, and then here's your document. Right now it is empty. There's nothing in it because this body tag is empty. Okay, but if you can see up here it says document, this is what that means. This up here is your title. So we're gonna call this HTML tutorial. Tutorial. All right, and then we're going to put a dash and make it home. So we're basically telling now the document here, the browser, that this title, the title of this page is the title of the website, and dash the title of the page. In the about page, you guessed it, it's going to be HTML tutorial dash about. There are many ways to do this. Some people, I've seen people do this and with home instead, and then HTML tutorial, and I've seen people do skip completely this right here. In fact, whatever you put in here is not really that important unless you're digging into SEO, and then that will become a different set of issues. So if I hit save, Control S, you see how it automatically go live, already automatically updated my site rapidly. And you can see now the name over here. Now this little world here that you see is a favicon, just like this website uses this favicon. And we don't have one installed right now, and depending on how much time we have on these set of videos that I'm going to do, I may actually create a separate section of the video to create a favicon and add it to your site. I think it's a good idea. It's a good thing to always have a site that produces your favicon for your client or for yourself. All right, so you have that taken care of, and now we're going to create, we're going to do an initial tag. So we're going to create our first element in the tag, and we're going to do an H1 tag. Don't worry about this being not properly aligned. When I save, Prettier is going to align it for me. Okay, so in here I'm going to put welcome to my page. Actually, I don't need that space there. Alright, and hit enter, and there we go. Now you're starting to write on your document. This is your first initial deployment to the browser on your very own page. So congratulations on that. Now, however, this is kind of ugly, right? It's black and white. If I put any more elements in there, I'm gonna go ahead and add, oops, that's not what I wanted. I'm gonna go ahead and put a P tag in here. This is my first document. Why do I keep doing that? I keep hitting enter. I don't need to. Alright, Control S. Control S or Command S if you're in a Mac. Welcome to my page. This is my first document. Now you can see how this is starting to be like really bland and blah. Alright, UL, and then now I'm going to put an LI in here. I'm going to call that item 1, and I'm going to copy this and put it a bunch of times down here. 2, 3, and 4. Hit enter, Control S actually, and here's your list. So this doesn't look any different than just writing on a Word document, right? Not very pleasing, not very pretty. So how do we style this stuff? How do we make this stuff look nice? Okay. If we go back to the assets here, we have this CSS in here. We're gonna create a file, and then in there we're gonna create a file called style.css. This is your first CSS file, okay, and this is where we actually get to make things pretty, right? So we're going to work with this H1 tag right here, and we're going to, instead of adding a class, because we're going to have a video that is going to target CSS and explain a lot of the CSS, so we're not going to go too far into this. So instead of creating classes and doing all that stuff, what we're going to do is we're just going to create the H1, and that's going to be pretty much it. So I'm going to put H1 here and open a set of brackets, right? And then here what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a color red, and I'm going to give it a font size, and see, because I have HTML snippets and CSS peak, I am able to see all this stuff and just basically use my arrows to go down to it if I don't remember what it's supposed to be. And then look at this, I can actually do all of this stuff here, right? So I want it to be inches or pixels or what. So pixels is a common one. REM is what is suggested to do because it's a little bit more responsive. So I'm gonna do REM, but I'm gonna give it a 1.2 REM. Okay, and hit enter. Now notice nothing changed. Wonder why? And I'll show you why. Your CSS and your HTML are not connected. It doesn't know that it exists. So this is how you're going to do it. Now that you have your styles sheet created, now you're gonna come over here and you're gonna do a link, and then hit enter, and you're going to see already that Emmett already built this for you. What this means is you're creating a link that is related to a style sheet, and it's going to be referenced in. So we're in the index folder and we need to go into the CSS folder. So we don't need to go back at all, so we can just type CSS, and inside the CSS, actually, did we save it? Yeah, we saved it. Alright, so we do need to go back into the assets, don't we? Yeah, we need to go back. Okay, you know what? I messed up because I had that stuff open. Because we're here, we need to go here. So we can't just go directly into the CSS folder. We can go directly here because we are outside of the assets folder. So we need to go first to the assets folder. Here we go. Now you can see it. Now it's available. And then click on the CSS and then click on the style sheet. And that's it. It's already installed. So you click now. Notice that as soon as I hit Control S, something's gonna happen here. And here it is. It changed. So basically, I'm gonna give this actually a 2.2. There we go. So I'm gonna show you what this did. If I click on the inspect, and this is something that you need to get very familiar with. I'm gonna open it down here. Actually, you know what? I am gonna keep it open separately so you can see it better. This right here is the DevTools Chrome tool that comes with Chrome, and it's you gonna have to get very familiar with this because this is our main way of debugging a lot of stuff. Okay, it has a console to debug a lot of PHP and JavaScript errors and a lot of scripting errors. It has ways that you can check for your sources in here for your website, the performance of your website, if you have anything on local storage memory on your website and things like that. And if you're working with Angular or Vue or Redux or anything like that, it will also can be attached to here. So there's a lot to do here, but for HTML you're basically gonna deal with this, and for JavaScript you're gonna deal with this. So you notice here that this is my H1 welcome tag, and then notice on the side on my styles I have a color red and my font size. If I wanted to see, oh, you know what, I want to see what this would look like if it wasn't red, and you could mess around with this stuff here in the dev tool and change all kinds of different things in here, and it will not change anything that you do here. This is working directly on the browser to test stuff. It's not changing a website at all. So like if I came over here to this people's website, whoever they are, and I clicked on the inspect and I checked them out, and I see this right here, this details tag, this hyperlink right here, and I made it purple, which it didn't because it's referenced here as well. So I'm just gonna change it there. There we go. And I make it purple. There you go. I just made it purple. So I just basically changed their site, right? changed all this stuff to purple. Not really. As soon as I refresh their website, it goes back to blue. It doesn't change anything. This is right here just for me to test stuff. Okay, and a lot of people use this to steal HTML code from other people, because you can see basically everybody's HTML through here, and you can see a lot of their CSS. I suggest you not to do that. Not only is unethical, but it really isn't going to teach you anything, and it only going to help you create more bugs in your application than anything, because you don't know how all of this stuff is put together in order to render. What you're looking at right now is the rendering aspect of it and the aftermath of after everything got put together. Okay, so don't do that. So going back to here, and I'm gonna close this too, because eventually we can talk about that a little later. Alright, so now you know how I created my style sheet in here, and then the next thing I'm going to do is create a script, JavaScript file. So same as you created the style sheet, I'm going to create in here, and this one is going to be called main.js, and JS means basically it's going to be interpreted as a JavaScript file. We're not gonna do anything at all in here, or actually, yeah, let's do that. So let's do a console just to make sure that it's working. Console log, and I'm going to hello, I am JavaScript. There we go. And hit that in there. Save it, close it. We're not going to work on that, but now we need to have it working on our side, right? So here's the thing with JavaScript: you can put it in the head if you want to, but it's better, or it's more practical, that you add it inside your body, and at the very bottom before the closing of your body. Sorry, that's not what I meant to do. Okay, and the reason why you want to do this is because whenever you add any type of script, or or anything that is going to run some kind of a what do you call it, some kind of scripting file or anything like that, it's got to run after your HTML has already parsed and your CSS has already parsed. If you have your scripts run in the head, they will run before your page, and some scripts are going to be very expensive on the browser. By expensive I mean they're going to be very heavy, and they're gonna slow your site down, because it's gonna have to run first before everything else starts to run. So it's better to let the website run all of its HTML and CSS, and let all the styles come up, so that the users know that, hey, my page is loading, and here it is. And the functionality of that goes inside the JavaScript file can come in later, because usually users, when they open the page for the first time, they don't start submitting forms in a nanosecond, right? It takes them a while to find the place that they want to work in and start filling the form out, and then hit the submit button. By the time they actually get to actually do something that they're gonna need JavaScript for, it's already sent. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't ever see JavaScript linked up here in the head. In many cases, it's kind of necessary. So just keep that in mind, that the most practical way is to put it down here. So we're gonna add the script tag, and in this, wait, what am I doing? So we're gonna add a script tag, and then in the script tag we're gonna need a couple of elements here. Actually, we're just gonna need one element. Sorry, we're gonna need an SRC. So what SRC means is source. So in the older days, you had to specify what kind of JavaScript you were using. So you had to put type of JavaScript, but you don't need to do that anymore. HTML5 had simplified this in order that if you just put script, it automatically knows that it's going to be JavaScript. It's pretty much the only way you can do it. So you're gonna now go into where your script file is, and remember, we put it all in assets and in scripts and in JavaScript. and if you hit S, and it will be in there. And look at this. If you go to the console, hello, I am JavaScript. This right here is what we wrote in the JavaScript file that you saw earlier. And this is how I can test that my connection came through, because upon loading, this was console logged onto my page browser. You don't need this stuff. This is just for me to test. I can delete that later if I want to. And I'm not going to explain what all of this means. So I'm just basically testing with this right here that my index showed up. My index file shows up with all the stuff that I need. Okay, so I think that's about all that I'm going to do for now. But I do want to do something with you guys to make sure that you guys are learning and to make sure that you guys are doing your work. I want to give you some homework, okay? And it's going to be very simple. So you saw how I was able to create all this stuff, right? So I want you to go to Bootstrap and have this page open here. This gets started, and I showed you earlier, not earlier, but I showed you in my previous tutorials, or that you needed to have this page available, because we were going to eventually need it. So I want you to come here, and I want you to link your CSS style sheet and your Bootstrap style sheet and your Bootstrap JavaScripts to your homepage. So I want, just like I added the CSS here and your script here, I want you to figure out how you can add more style sheets and add more JavaScripts to your page. Okay, and I think I gave you enough of a hint, and if I taught you well on this particular video, then this should be fairly easy. Alright, and I'll check up on that homework on the next video, because I will be doing it to start the next video. That will be the first thing I'm gonna do, but try to do it on your own. Alright, well, that's all I have for now. Make sure you like my channel if you haven't yet, and make sure that you subscribe if you haven't yet, so that way you can get more of the videos as I post them up. Alright guys, and I'll see you in the next one.